The Federalist Papers number 34. The same subject continued, concerning the general power of taxation. From the New York Packet. Friday, January 4, 1788. Hamilton. To the people of the state of New York. I flatter myself it has been clearly shown in my last number that the particular states, under the proposed Constitution, would have co-equal authority with the Union in the article of revenue, except as to duties on imports. As this leaves open to the states far the greatest part of the resources of the community, there can be no basis for the assertion that they would not possess means as abundant as could be desired for the supply of their own needs, independent of all external control. That the field is sufficiently wide will more fully appear when we consider the limited share of the public expenses for which it will be the responsibility of the state governments to provide. To argue on abstract principles that this coordinate authority cannot exist is to set up supposition and theory against fact and reality. However proper such reasoning might be to show that something ought not to exist, they are wholly irrelevant when used to prove that it does not exist contrary to the evidence of the fact itself. It is well known that in the Roman Republic, the legislative authority ultimately resided in two distinct political bodies, one representing the patrician interest and the other the plebeian. These two legislatures coexisted for ages, and the Roman Republic reached a high level of greatness. In the case under consideration, there is no such contradiction. Neither side has the power to annul the acts of the other. In practice, there is little reason to fear any inconvenience, because the needs of the states will naturally narrow over time, and in the interim, the United States will likely avoid the areas the states would prefer to manage. To accurately assess this question, we should consider the ratio between federal and state revenue needs. The federal requirements are unlimited, while state needs are modest. We should not only look at the present, but also consider future needs. Civil constitutions should account for enduring needs rather than transient ones. Therefore, any attempt to strictly limit federal powers based on immediate needs would be unwise, as future contingencies are limitless. We need the capacity to address these as they arise, even if we could roughly estimate the current revenue needed for national obligations and peacetime maintenance. However, would it be wise to limit the government's capacity for defense? If we accept that more than a minimal provision is needed, then the power to provide for emergencies should not be restricted. Even if we disregard the possibility of offensive war, we should still ensure the government can protect the nation. With Europe's tensions, it's impossible to say we're beyond the reach of any threat. Historically, the world shows that war often overwhelms peace, therefore, planning on perpetual peace would be unrealistic. What are the main sources of governmental expense? Primarily, wars and rebellions, along with the institutions necessary to guard society from these dangers. Compared to the costs of national defense, expenditures on domestic governance, agriculture, and industry are minimal. In Britain, where monarchy expenses are significant, only a small fraction of the national income is spent on domestic administration, the bulk covers debts from wars and the military. Even if we allow for the extravagance of a monarchy and the economy of a republic, the disparity remains significant. But let us also consider the debt we incurred in a single war. Estimating the average occurrences that disrupt peace, we see a vast difference between federal and state financial responsibilities. Several states carry substantial debts from the recent war, but with the new system, such debts would not recur. Once cleared, the state's revenue needs would mainly be for basic civil administration, likely under £200,000 annually. In building a government for the future, we should base enduring provisions on lasting causes of expense. For state governments, an annual sum of £200,000 would suffice, while the Union's needs are boundless. Thus, how can it be argued that state governments should have exclusive revenue sources beyond their essential needs? If the convention had chosen to allocate revenue sources based on proportional need, no state fund would align with both present and future requirements. External and internal taxes might leave the states with 2/3 of community resources, while the Union would need 9/10 of these resources for its obligations. Assigning states exclusive power to tax land would still misalign needs and resources. This reasoning supports the idea that a concurrent jurisdiction in taxation is preferable to making state authority subordinate to federal power. Any division of revenue would sacrifice national interests to state power. The Convention chose concurrent jurisdiction, reconciling an indefinite federal power of taxation with sufficient state power to meet their own needs. There are other aspects of taxation that deserve further consideration. Publius.